overpop, cueues, double teaming, all partly due to the free faction system. But how can we fix this? Let's discuss. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fable1, and today we're gonna have a discussion about an ancient problem in Planetside 2, and that is the faction balance. But before we dive into the discussion, I want to address one thing. My latest video had some critique because apparently I was repeating certain points, and I got some comments for that, and I really appreciate those critical notes as well. Of course, I do love it when you guys say I'm doing a good job, but I don't learn anything from that. So if you have any notes or advice for me, just comment on the videos or let me know in the Discord, and then as we go, I will try to improve. Also, on a more positive note, our Gentlemen's Club has over 700 members right now. So if you want to become part of the fastest growing Planetside 2 community on YouTube, please consider pressing that big red subscribe button down below and keep up to date with all the latest Planetside 2 and Planetside Arena news. Having said that though, let's dive into the discussion part of the video. I tweeted not that long ago about a ridiculous witch hunt on developer Drew. There was this Reddit post by Procore, and he had some false accusations, for example for B-Way and also for recursion. I don't want to spend any more time on this topic, but on that particular tweet I got a comment from Dan Eichelberger, and he addressed a bigger issue. In the picture he shows us, we see the faction balance on Indar, and if I'm not mistaken, this is on the Connery server. Apparently there's a very big dominance for the Vanu on Connery. Multiple people pointed out. I have already seen several posts on Reddit about it, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. However, this is not only a problem on Connery, this is a game-wide problem, a game-wide issue. I've heard, for example, that the TR is very strong on Soltech. Please let me know your personal experience on your own server. Is there, for example, one dominant faction over there? Let me know. However, all the faction balance issues can ruin your Planetside experience. Again, according to Dan, 90% of his outfit quit thanks to this overpopulation because they could not find good fights anymore, and the battles they did find were often spawn room camps. Overpop is an issue on every server. However, I also think that Connery itself is having some other issues as well. In general, there are less players playing on Connery, and from the players that do play on Connery, there is a big percentage from Australia or Asia, so the ping is not always the greatest over there. I do not want to focus on these issues in particular, but I want to look at really the faction balance things we can see on every server. One of the potential fixes can be found in the alert styles we have right now. Salty TRVAT on Reddit takes a look at the winner takes stars star reward system, which promotes the coordinated double teaming. He basically says, well, if all the other factions are attacking mainly this other faction, then why not reward this other faction as well? The logic behind this is that the double teamed faction has to work the hardest to not lose all the territory, but gains nothing in return. Personally, I don't know what I think about this, because I do think that only the real winner should get like a reward, but I get his idea at least. There however is a comment from Jescom, and he says the double teaming of a current alert system is significantly better than it was previously. The primary issue right now is are the players themselves. They're not being led properly and are oblivious to the map because they are not paying attention to the important parts, at least if you want to play for the alerts. He's not opposed to the ID, but he says something very important. How do you calculate this? And what will be a sufficient reward? In general, my personal opinion is that the alerts are the main way to fix, I think, this whole issue. However, my personal experience is that not a lot of players are really working toward the alerts, working towards the win. During prime time, I have to admit that a lot of outfits are actively working towards an alert win if possible. They go to locations they think has a tactical advantage, or for example cuts off a whole lattice. The main problem with that though is that outfits are not always playing. Of course there are always op nights, and the influence of those outfits is very important of course for the alerts, but during a normal day like daytime, we are not playing with like your normal outfit and you're playing more lone wolf style. I don't know, it feels like the alert is not important at all anymore. That's why I would like to go back to Jessicom's comment on the Reddit post, and he says, personally I feel like a base increase in alert rewards should suffice. I think this is a very important step. People need to notice how important, for example, winning a certain alert should be. This is, I think, the only way to incentivize players to start working on alerts. Maybe we could also implement some different kind of alerts as well. I'm thinking of other style rewards because right now it is the winner takes it all, but I can't think right now on other different kinds of alerts we would like to implement in this 3-faction battle system. Again, if you know anything, please let us know in the comments and let's make this a discussion. But let's go on to something different. There is something else that DBG could implement to fix the balance issue. Again, we go back to a tweet from Dan Ankelberger, and he says actually, if we see that this one faction has this big lead on a continent, just kill off spawning on the map. If possible, let them go to another continent. Allowing a faction to overpop a server kills gameplay. And I think he's right in this. However, I see again one more pain point. In this example, there was another continent open. But let's say there wasn't. In this example, what would Ivana do? Just not be able to spawn anymore? I know one thing for sure, and that is that not spawning is at least worse in killing gameplay than having overpop. You could argue that we could always open at least a second continent to fix this issue. However, if a continent is completely empty, it's not fun to spawn over there anyway. If you might be able to put in more players again to at least have a second continent open all the time, okay, I believe in this, but then we need, for example, maybe a merger between Connery and Emerald, or Miller and Cobalt, or whatever. Quite drastic changes, I think, but it could work. But let's look at some lesser changes, little changes. Another one of those solutions would be the XP adjustments. Low pop factions should gain more XP. And that's how it works right now. Does it incentivize players enough to not log in on that particular faction? Probably not. I think we've got another problem here because players often have their own favorite faction or their own favorite main character they want to play with. You're not going to switch to your second character and to another faction just because you get like 5% more XP. How much extra experience points do you need to earn to justify switching to another character? I don't know. I think XP wise, right now they're doing a good job at their games to fix the issue, but still it is very hard one. What I do have to say about this topic though is the faction switching. We see a lot of players switching to the winning faction. So if, for example, there are 30 minutes left, we see that the TR is having 50% of the continent right now. You're pretty sure that the TR is going to win the alert, so you switch to the TR. Makes sense, right? That's one of the problems we also see, the faction switching. In an ideal world, we would like players to participate in their own faction as long as possible to try to fight back and gain back the territory. On the one hand, I want to increase the base rewards, but on the other hand, I also know that if you increase the base rewards for the alerts, you will probably also incentivize players to do more faction switching, which we don't want as well. Luckily, this problem is not as big as some people say it is, because a lot of people are true to their faction or true to their character. But it does happen. Basically, if you can't beat them, join them. I do have to be very thankful again to all these outfits. A lot of them do op nights, of course, and when they choose a certain faction to roll with, to play with that night, they often stick with it, unless if the fights are becoming worse. In general, I do think that outfits are a very important part in fixing the issue. What outfits can do to minimize the problem is communicating. Communicating not only with our own players, but also communicating with all the other outfits on the faction. If we see more coordination on a specific server or specific faction, it will probably be a bit better. Unfortunately, I'm not myself an outfit leader, so I can't help Miller with this. But at least that's how we did it with our guilds in Guild Wars 2. Completely different topic, of course. But my server for Shiver Peaks had amazing coordination, and we did not have the best players. But because we coordinated with other guilds or alliances or the outfits, clans, whatever, we often ended up as number 1. This Guild Wars game is the only other game I know of that has a similar 1v1v1 mechanic faction wise. If you know a different game that uses the same mechanic, please let me know in the comments down below. We got one final issue, one final part of the problem we have with the faction balance, and it is the spawn room camping as well. It is part of the overpop. Having fun during your game session is the most important. And I go back to Dan Eichelberg, he says, think about the new player experience here. You log in, you walk out of the spawn room into 50 guys just waiting for you, spawn camping, licking your spawn rooms. You log off, you play Anthem and start, just so it is in place. And I do have to agree here, what are you supposed to do? When you're a new player, you spawn in the spawn room and you see you can't get out. Every time you pass a shield, you get murdered directly. But now we get to a different part of the issue. I don't think this is part of faction balance. This is a problem thanks to the spawn system. Right now the game allows you to spawn a limited amount of people at a very high populated base already. But this is going to be fixed according to the developers. What they tried to do is spread the population more according what's needed to the fight. If you see there was like a 70-30 fight going on population wise, probably the spawn system won't send you there anymore. The spawn system in general is a very important part of spreading the population. I do think we need to wait and see what this change is going to do and change to the game before we're gonna make drastic changes. Anyway, this is a big problem. I'm not an expert myself, but if you have any other suggestions for the game, please let me know. I really thank Dan Eichelberg for coming up with this issue, and I really thank him for his arguments. Like I said, I don't always agree, I have my own opinion, but share yours as well in the comments down below, please. Having said that, I am Faber1, and I'll see you soon with some more content.